Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. We're here at Seekers of Truth, and we have our special guest, an intuitive spiritual guide. Her name is Crystal Sayers. So thank you for being here.
Hello. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So today, we are going to talk about a few things, right? A few things regarding basically about your past, how you've become, because you were a social worker before 2020 is what you had mentioned.
Yeah, I was in social work. I wasn't exactly like a social worker, but all that whole field, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so that's it, going from there to doing the work that you're doing right now, right? So basically that's it. So how is it exactly that you started this whole process? If you can tell us a little bit about your background, and
Mhm.
then afterwards we're going to continue going on with what you're doing right now. So if you can give
Sure.
us a little blurb about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on. I am so grateful. I'm excited to be here. I really appreciate it. And yeah, so where to start? My goodness. Well, I'll just go back to sort of like my teenage years. So from the time I was about 12 years old, I was within the Christian faith. And so that was my background. I was from a faith background, not necessarily all of my family, but I had a pretty significant experience with Jesus. So I had an experience where actually I really felt the love of Jesus. And so that was kind of the beginning of my spiritual walk in a way. I had heard the Holy Spirit or heard Jesus, somebody talking to me, a voice speaking to me about something when I was younger. And I used to write songs even just leading up to that point, about all kinds of things that I didn't really know or understand until later on, as I was on my journey of faith. And so I found that space being for me, that was my tribe at that particular time. And that carried on for about 34 years. So I also was a missionary. I became a missionary after I left high school, and I lived overseas for several years. So I have been in the realm of like even praying for people and seeing people healed, and now understanding sort of even how energy works, and understanding that there's an energetic shift that actually takes place even through prayer and through our faith, our belief. And so yeah, so I was a missionary for almost 10 years. And then I came back to Canada. And during that time, and even while I was doing missionary work, we were doing all kinds of work that would be sort of in that social humanitarian sector.
Okay.
And so during the time when I returned back to Canada around 2006, I returned, and I actually had a significant back and leg problem. And that led me to staying here. And I was actually in complete denial, which is a whole other thing a whole other topic, in itself when we talk about denial, because of what we really want, of what's really true for us. This is a really big thing that's happening right now within the collective is that kind of alignment, misalignment as well, and really being able to see that. So I began to realize that I had this desire to stay in Canada, and I ended up staying. Plus, I needed some time to actually heal. But if it wasn't for the situation that had happened with this extreme back and leg pain that I had experienced for a year before I left Australia, I would not have come home. I would not have returned.
Wow.
And my life has been full of people pleasing, which is a traumatic, it's one of the most underrated or underestimated kind of traumatic responses
Yeah.
is people pleasing or fawning. And so that has been my life, and it fit well for a time, right? As this part of survival. How do we be, how can we be accepted, loved, by others, that all of that, right? And so I've lived my whole life like this, and I'm in my 40s now. And so as time would have it, I continued to do social work types of jobs. I worked with the homeless and those in addictions, as well as coming out of sexual exploitation, special needs, kind of the whole gamut. I've worked with many different people, and many of them in high stress, high traumatic types of situations. And during that time, I burnt out several times. And every time you burn out, it gets worse or it takes longer, I should say, to recover than the first time, because the body needs time to recover. And so if we're not listening to the body, to our mind, to our emotions, I just kind of shoved it down because it's all about surviving. And a lot of times we're not even conscious, right? So I wasn't even always conscious of what I was doing. Other than the need to survive, the need to make money, the need to, the desire to help. I've always been a caregiver, mothering type all of my life, a leader all of my life in some way, shape, or form. I've always, even since as from childhood. And so that has been something that I've carried through into my adulthood. And then during that time as well, I was married in 2013, and it was great. I was burnt out because I was leaving a job as
Yeah.
well. So I was really burnt out when we actually got married, and we were going to start a new business. And there was a whole bunch of decisions that we made that I look back and just think, wow, I could have done. I'm like, I would have been the person who, like, we were the people who, like, if there's anything that would not be great decisions as you're coming into a marriage and everything, we did all of the things. So we did all the things to add more complication, to our lives. But I mean, it was a learning experience, of course. I don't regret any of it or whatever. And then in 2020, my husband and I, at the time, my former husband and I, we ended up having to kind of start over. He had a severe medical condition that was challenging, and he was no longer able to work full time. That put a lot of even more financial pressure on us. And we had to shut down aspects of his business, which he and I were working on. But we were just like at the beginning stages of getting traction, and we were struggling financially. So we ended up selling our home. And we started over, and we went and lived in a basement suite of a friend's place, which I'm so grateful for. And that was kind of our new beginning. We paid off a bunch of debt. We could breathe a little bit better,
Yeah.
for a time. But when I came into that space, when we sold our house, we moved into this new place, and then the lockdowns happened. So in 2020. So March 2020. So the timing of everything for us also was very interesting, in terms of how everything unfolded. And it was at that time when I was like an irritable, in chronic pain, angry, emotional mess. Like, I was a mess, and I knew that I needed to get help. And I'm open to talk therapy. I've done, various forms of, seeing counselors, psychotherapists, things like that as well. But I wanted something that was more holistic. And that led me to begin going, okay, this is my opportunity to kind of go back to school, to even shift my career, because I can't do the social work world anymore. Like, I just kept burning out over and over, and it was time for a change. And I knew that since I was a mess, I really needed some help. And I wanted to address things like on the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual levels as well, right? So that led me to Body Talk. And body talk is an energetic healing modality that really addresses the underlying causes of illness and disease. So it's a consciousness-based type of healthcare, and it addresses the whole person. It addresses the body, the mind, and the spirit of the person. And
Yeah.
so I basically took that time while we had these lockdowns to do the studying, to do the exam. I worked my butt off. And by September, so that was March, by September, I was certified. And my instructor was like, I haven't seen anybody certify so quickly, like within 4 months. And I did my practicum, I did all the stuff, everything that I could do. And I started a business. And that's what I'm doing now is I'm running my own business, New Beginnings Health and Wellness.
Wow. That
Yeah.
was
And
quite
I
a,
started
yeah.
finding too with this healing modality that my stress levels started decreasing, my sense of well-being, and even just like that things are going to be okay. Just
Mhm.
that, just a feeling of like, okay, everything's okay, even though my circumstances hadn't changed, right? It's
Yeah,
like, okay, everything's going to be okay. There was the beginning parts of hope, right?
exactly. It's almost like getting out of that fight or flight mode type thing, right? It's
Yes, that was the beginning of that
Mhm.
process. Yeah. And it's been
So
a long one.
it's an experience, right? I mean, you have to
Yes.
kind of go through a couple things. But the thing is, the good thing is that you were able to realize that because that's the first step, right? I
Yes,
mean, it's realizing what's going on, what's not working, and then doing something about it. So it's exactly what you've been doing throughout the whole time, right?
absolutely.
And now, I mean, you're like you just said, right now you're helping not only yourself, but you're helping others too, right? Through your business and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So that's it. So now within your business, I know that you have a couple of different modalities, not only just the body talk, but I know you mainly through the light language, which is really something that I would love to talk about. We
Absolutely.
don't really hear too much about it. And just I wouldn't be the expert, let's just say, in explaining what light language is all about. But I know you do light language. You do obviously the readings. You have a couple of workshops and stuff like that that you give out, and you have your own YouTube channel. And we were just talking about before too, is through the readings and stuff like that. Like your main purpose basically is to help people learn about these modalities, on their own too, at the same time to help themselves out, right? And
Yes.
not always, going the outside or coming to see like yourself on a constant basis or whatnot. It's them learning the whole process. So, so that's it. Yeah. So you went through all of that, and now through your company and through YouTube and everything. Um, First, if it's okay with you, I'd like to talk about the light language, how it
Sure.
kind of works for you. And I know it's a type of channeling and whatnot.
Sure.
So how
Yeah.
do you integrate it like within your work, and how do you help people with that too?
Yeah. Well, I might just backtrack a little bit for
Okay.
just a moment, just to give
Yeah.
people a little more background of like a little more about sort of because I've shifted or expanded outside of Christianity. So this was the beginning of that process where I began to just start asking those questions, right?
Mhm.
Around like, I mean, even for me, like chakras were off limits, like that was evil. And you know what I mean? So for me, like even just coming into that level of expansion where I'm asking questions and I'm asking source
Yeah.
and God going, okay, if these are real, then I want to experience it for myself. Right.
Yeah.
And I think like this is a big part of even the conversation we're having is around us having these experiences and really not just taking things because people say it, but actually try it out for ourselves. So it
Mhm.
really becomes applied information, right? Understanding and wisdom. And so I'll just backtrack just a little bit. In
Yeah.
2020, I went through all of this and I was working through how does this stuff fit within the scripture or within the Bible. So I was grappling with a lot of that and it was okay. It was okay. But there came a point for me where I knew that I was going to be leaving the church and I ended up leaving the church. I expanded beyond Christianity because I knew that the things in terms of even like some of the spiritual guidance and readings and things like this was a little outside the box, even though within the church, I was always a very prophetic person. So I always have received messages from source. I've always shared those messages. And my light language actually came from was birthed through my Christian faith.
Okay.
So when I was like 13 years old, I think it was 12 or 13, I can't remember, but it was within my first year of becoming a Christian at the time and having this amazing experience with Jesus and then continuing to have those experiences. And this is the thing that even for me within my faith, the only reason I am where I am today is because of what I've learned and how I've learned to cultivate a relationship with source, right? Meditation, right? Reflection, a lot of journaling, and a lot of back and forth conversation. So I have been channeling for many, many years. Like this is a normal, experience for me. So just because I've expanded from the church, it's like that sort of, or the beliefs, all the belief systems associated with that, because for me, it really helped me. I grew. I don't regret any of it, but I also see part of what I'm healing over the last several years is things around fear, control, people pleasing, authority and submission, those kinds of things. So that's been a process for me to work through because it's been so deeply ingrained. And I believe it's also been something that was ingrained even from other past lives. And for me, it went back to the 1200s. So there was a lot in terms of the religious stuff, not even just like a lot. And so in the last couple of years, it's been a time of like really closing off a major cycle in my life, or major sort of the repeating of patterns and things like that. And coming out of that and expressing my voice. And this has not been an easy process. Because while I was letting go, and there's so much stuff around the guilt and everything like that associated with that, while I was letting go and working through this stuff, I'm also being pushed. My guides are saying, we want you to start doing readings. And it was very uncomfortable because well, people are going to think Crystal's gone off the deep end, and I'm sure people have thought that, but for me, the voice remained the same. The voice was still the same, just I was using different tools, and it was like I became uncorked. That's what happened. It was like whatever cork I had on, that cork came out, and boom, here we go. And so there was a major level of freedom while experiencing a lot of pain and suffering related to relationships and leaving my community and all of those things. So, and this awakening that I was going through and have been going through also, it's not the only reason, but I also realized how unhealthy my marriage was. There was a level of codependency, and because of some medical issues and things like this, we just could not give each other what we really needed. And so we're still friends to this day, actually. Like it was not an easy process. But we both agreed, that we both needed to be able to have a level of freedom that we couldn't allow each other to have, even just like because of the codependent stuff, and me being a caregiver and somebody who is, and always trying to mitigate risk, right? I had so much stress related to this that I would like wake up in the night and I would think he's falling off the bed, and I would reach for him and scare the crap out of him and myself because I'm thinking that he was falling off the bed, for example, right? So it was that, like, it was literally that, like, traumatic. It was very, very, it was on, and this was years and years of this. And so we both basically agreed and gave each other the freedom that we needed. And so our marriage also during this time came to completion. So awakenings, y'all, can be very disruptive.
Very uncomfortable too.
And very uncomfortable while we're in this process of, there's excitement because we're also discovering things and discovering aspects of ourselves, and right. And so, so just going back to your question around the light language, from the age of 12, I believe it was 12, maybe 13. I I was just kind of like, I wanted whatever God had for me. That's how I was within my faith. I was like, if this is for me, then I want it. If this is for, whatever it is, I was so hungry, so open. I really wanted a deep connection with God and with Source. And so, yeah, so some people helped me, and I was released in my light language. And within the Christian faith, it would be known as tongues, or the tongues of men and angels, or praying in the spirit. And so that's how I knew it up until, like, a few years ago. Right.
Yeah.
And so even during that time, I've also helped other people receive the Holy Spirit, or receive this activation that we call light language now, right, within the spiritual community. And so this is a normal thing. I use light language a lot, sometimes every day. Sometimes it's every day. So light language is so helpful because it's the language of the soul.
Mhm.
It helps us to connect with Source, with our angels and guides, and it bypasses the mind. So they've actually done studies where they've had people have, like, those probes put on their
It's, yeah.
brain, and they've scanned it, and they have found that light language, or the gift of tongues, does not come from the part of the brain where speech comes from. So they can see that the activity, they don't understand it, but they can see that it's not coming from us, even though we're voluntarily, like, speaking light language.
Yeah.
It's coming from somewhere else. It's not coming from the place that language normally comes from in the brain. So there's actually, like, there's videos on YouTube about it where they've done these studies. So
Oh,
fascinating. Right. So
yeah.
that tells you a lot. It bypasses the mind. It bypasses whatever we're thinking, and we connect immediately to spirit. We connect immediately to the soul, to our higher self, to angels and guides, and other, sometimes other beings and things like this as well. And so light language can be a form of prayer. Right. We can use it to break through barriers. Sometimes we don't even know what's wrong. Well, what do you say in English? Maybe you don't have something to say, or you don't know what even to pray. And instead, you actually can speak your light language and release the light language. And that will help move and shift things, even though we may not understand what we're actually saying.
Okay.
But I also do teach people and help them to begin to learn how to interpret messages as well, because sometimes, and the light language can be very different. It can be very soft. It can be very, and it can be very guttural, and it can be like, it can have different sounds, like different dialects almost, or different languages. It can sound very different
Mhm.
depending on what's going on. So
That's interesting because is it also kind of similar to like the automatic writing and stuff like that too? It's just, it's not coming through words, but it's writing it down. Is it kind of like the same concept, or
Well,
is
it
it
is
kind of like
it could be, depending on kind of where it's coming from. So
a,
if we're talking about, like, even connecting with our higher self, your higher self can give you a message through your writing, right?
exactly? Yeah. Hmm.
Or the message could be, do you want me to do, like, a little sample?
Sure.
I
Yeah,
could do
of
a
course.
sample of light language, and we'll see. So I'm inviting a council that I channel in. So I often will channel them in English, but lots of times they'll come through in light language, and then I'll interpret for the person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's okay, well, maybe what I'll do is I'll tune into you and see what message they have for you, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I'm just going to, like, as I tune in, I'm connecting with this council of light beings that I channel, and they're
Mhm.
here to serve mankind. So it's really only those that are here for our highest good. And I'm just going to go into light language. They're already talking. It's interesting. And you'll probably see me move my hands.
Okay.
Sometimes light language includes hand movements or different types of mudras.
Mhm.
Keara shiara no kuto undarata iara mokuto endaya sheyara makandara ayo kundoro to kuto diara barra no kuto uya shiara mokuto ndara yara barra mokuto ndara diara ba Harana ora mato onda ayo kota aya shiakata aya shokoto ondara yara bukundura andara e adara yara bukundara ba aya shiara yara bukundara handari yara bukundura shokoto oto iakata aya shiakata aya shokondura bakoto oya shiara mokoto nara yara bara. He ata aya shiara mokoto o diara bara no koto ondara shata nara yara bokoto yara. So I just want to ask you a question,
Go ahead.
because sometimes people will feel things happening in their body or shift.
Mhm.
Were you sensing anything coming through for you? There's no
Uh,
pressure if
no,
not.
no, no, no. I know, I know, I know. I was getting like a lot of the goosebumps on my right hemisphere, like right here type
Yeah.
thing. And
Yeah.
then in the end, when for some reason I was seeing the eternity sign right at the
Mm.
middle of my chest, basically. Yeah,
Oh,
that's what I was
beautiful.
feeling. Yeah.
Amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah, great. So what they were talking about was they were saying you're going through this like really interesting integration process. So there's a lot of integrating happening. So that's why
Yeah.
sometimes you might feel like the tingling going on because there's a connection that's taking place within the brain or the energy system of the body.
Mhm.
And they were saying spread out to the right, spread out to the left. So they're talking about expansion,
Okay.
spreading out, like spreading out to the right and the left. um, Sometimes I'll stop because I have to say what, because I don't remember
You don't
everything that they
remember? Yeah, I
say.
know.
But
Mhm.
yeah, and then they were like just showing me sort of aspects of like recalibration that were taking place within the body
Okay.
as well. And there was something else. Please help me remember what it was. So they were saying, you are the one. No one is coming to save you. You
Yeah.
are the one. It's like, it feels like it's related to even what we were talking about before. It's like we think that we have to look outside of us for something, but actually all of the answers are within.
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of if you don't go within, you'll go without. And so they were just saying, it's like, you are the one, you're empowered to live this life. You have everything that you need or access to everything that you need that pertains to life and to the experience of godliness in this life.
Yeah.
Embracing that. And I felt like that last bit was like for you, but it's like also for the collective, right? It's a collective message as well.
Mhm.
But they're bringing it to you, but it's actually really, right?
For
This is how.
everyone. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So others who are listening may actually find this resonating with them as well. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, it's okay. I tell people, I say, eat the meat and spit out the bones. So if there's something you're not sure about, I just go, okay, I'm shelving that. I don't even know where to put it, or sometimes we don't have the framework,
Yeah.
right? So when I was going through my awakening process, I'm like, I don't have a framework for reincarnation at the time. I'm like,
Yeah.
I was taught not to believe in this. I was, all of this kind of stuff. So I didn't have any framework. So I'm like, okay, spirit, well, I'm putting this on the shelf. And if it's something that needs to come forward or that I need to know or understand, then I just trust that that will come forward. And 2 months later, then I was able to receive it more. So
That's
I
what I
was
would say.
curious, but I was
Yeah.
like, if it's true, then show me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We don't have to force anything, right? And lots of times we're trying to force our learning and force things. And it's like, sometimes we're not ready for that, right?
Yeah. It's a lack of patience, or
Yeah.
it's also the fact of like, it's our curiosity, right? We want to understand type thing. So it's like having to wait can be a little bit daunting. So I get that. Yeah.
And the ego too. The ego wants to know
True.
everything.
Yeah,
And a
you're
lot
right.
of what is happening right now is this awakening that's taking place is beyond the ego, right? It's beyond sort of
It
the
is.
the thinking parts of us. So sometimes we just want to know things for the sake of knowing, but actually spirit wants or source wants us to learn from our heart space, right? So it's a more heart-centered type of living,
Yeah.
where when it's time, then it will come, right? It's like
Yeah.
when the student is ready, the teacher will appear,
Well, yes,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Oh, thank you so much. That was really awesome.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Um, and then oh yeah, you had mentioned there's one thing. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I've noticed that by talking with a lot of people too, a lot of the spiritual awakenings, it really happened when they were like between 12, 13. And me too is the same thing. It was in and around that age type thing. So is there a significance of for that like specific, I don't know if it's the numberings or if it's the age or if it's because, you're not, I guess you can say, bombarded by everything else at that point, like society and all that different types of stuff, that it kind of construes a lot of things within you. Like, what is it that at that specific age, everything just kind of starts opening up? Or do you know anything about that? Or
The thing that comes to my mind, so I don't know a lot about it, but I do know that somebody has talked about it because I feel like I've come across something. But the thing that comes to my mind, like when you're asking about it, what I'm hearing from the guides is they're saying it's the beginning of the age of responsibility.
okay.
It's the beginning. I just got chills as I said it. So
Yeah.
they're saying that it's like the beginning of us beginning that really it's connected to our own individuation, right?
Okay.
So healthy, independent, interdependent. And it's the time, right, where kids,
Yeah.
we start sort of looking at more of like we're trying to figure out who we are. So, when that happens at that particular time, it just because it's the age of maturity, right? So, for young women, usually, sometimes it's happening younger than that, of course, and at various ages, but that's what I'm hearing is, yeah, it's the age of responsibility. We're coming into a point where we're beginning to start to I feel wanting to own our own energy more strongly. And I feel that this, though, even around that age, the age is actually getting younger. Like they're saying, what I'm hearing is 10, like not necessarily coming into puberty, although that may be happening, but the age of responsibility is coming in because the children who are coming into this space now
Mhm.
are of a different caliber, right? Their DNA is different. Even what's activated in them is different, right? It's like a 3-year-old can run an iPhone and a 60-year-old, maybe struggling, right? Or even a 40-year-old,
Yeah.
right? So it's like even their ability to like to know where to go, how to get in, like how does a child know that? We would not have known that if we were given a phone,
Yeah.
right? But like, so they're coming in with technologies and that kind of thing as well. So I feel like actually the age of responsibility, meaning a level of sort of some sort of like really beginning to step in and that ownership of their own energy and who they are
Yeah.
is younger. And for some, it'll be really young. They'll know right from the beginning. And for others, it'll be older. But I feel like generally the guides are actually just saying that actually 10, like 9, but about around 10 years old, right? It's happening sooner
Yeah.
because everything is shifting. The consciousness of humankind is shifting as well, right? So it's all playing in that.
Everything is happening so much faster, right? And even for myself and my experience, even for the healing process, and I find it's going so much faster. Like
Mm-hmm.
where a couple of years ago, you try to heal a trauma and it would take a couple of years, or talking, to psychiatrists or whatnot for a couple of years, and then, it would help. But nowadays, like it's even as short as like 15, 20 minutes, and it's just crying it all out or whatever it is that you're feeling at that moment, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
done, and it's
Yes.
pretty incredible. Actually, I find
Yeah.
that quite fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But and then you were talking about also the especially in this day and age, so we were talking a little bit about the ego, about denial and people pleasing. Those were the three major ones that we were just talking about. um And so for either of those cases and stuff like that, other than the light language too, like you said, you have other modalities and you bring it all together. Like how is it that you help people with all of this stuff, like to process all of these things?
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a lot of grief too, obviously going on. Um, but yeah, anyways, it's kind of like just to understand a little bit more of your process, like how do you work it out, even to the point where like I would love to know, first thing in the morning when you wake up, what is it that you do? Do you have a routine? Do you have, a process for yourself that kind of helps you,
Yeah.
just helps you on a daily basis type thing? But
Sure.
first, it would be knowing exactly how, we can go through all this and do our own healings and stuff. How is
Mm-hmm.
it that you help people out for that?
Yeah, so I'm really finding that I'll just say this about the readings. What I'm finding actually is most people are deep down, they're wanting permission to
Mm,
do what they really want.
okay.
So, because there's so much denial of self and, sacrificing
Yeah.
and that, and the
Mm,
guides say they've been telling me this personally, because I've sacrificed a lot. And they're like, the time of sacrificing, I mean, yes, okay, we're gonna have moments of that, but generally speaking, the time of sacrificing is over. What
okay.
our parents and our parents' parents and grandparents had to go through to
Mm,
survive, we're learning new ways to come out of survival quickly
yeah.
so that we can be in, I call it thrival. I call it thriving, right?
Nice.
But it's like thrival,
Yeah, yeah,
out of
yeah.
from survival to thrival, right? It's like moving into that space of thriving. People are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so part of the awakening that's happening is people are looking for, they're needing confirmation and permission to actually create their own life. And this is across the board. This is like a significant theme in terms of all the work that I'm doing,
Okay.
is permission to be you, permission to be the authentic you.
Yeah.
So in order to shift into that authentic you, we have to uncover layers and layers of things that we've used as coping mechanisms. And this past year for me has been a time where it's like, all the coping mechanisms that I've had in the past, been, in terms of being like, I've been in lots of high stress survival situations,
Yeah.
they're all gone. It's like they're not even there. Whatever I used before to cope,
Yeah.
it doesn't do the trick anymore. So I think I had shared with you that I spent some time in Mexico for about 3 months. And
Yeah.
that actually just all it did, it was an opportunity for me to reflect, to do some healing. But for the most part, it was just taking space so that I could see the big mess that I had going on internally, that it was like just create, a space to allow for that deeper awareness. And
Hmm.
I had a fear situation take place. And it was not major, but it was major for me. It was major for my inner child. Actually, it was baby, because the whole word was, well, don't be such a baby. This isn't that big of a deal. I mean, it was a big deal. I'm in a different country and there were some safety issues.
Yeah.
And not for me, it was like the fear of not having things locked up. And at the time, the landlord was away, and I had just gotten there like first couple days of moving into this Airbnb. And it was just the whole situation was it was great, but it was also very strange. But it brought up like significant trauma for me from when I was a child, and spending a lot of time alone, and not feeling protected. And there's lots of reasons for that. So for a long time, again, you're talking about denial. I lived in denial. We live in denial until we become aware that this is an issue.
Yeah.
But what I found was I was in a place where I no longer could use whatever I used before to cope and shut down the fear to survive. Like lots of times I could be like, I could take charge in an emergency situation, like high stress.
Yeah.
It was like, I could not calm myself down. And anyway, so I ended up, it led to a phone call, and I did address the issue, because I just said, this is like, it's my first couple days here, and they didn't let me know they were leaving. And then I didn't have a key to lock up the house. And like, it was stuff like that. So I
Okay.
just was like, at the very least, I would need a key, to be able to lock the door,
For
you know.
sure. Yeah.
And so anyway, yeah, that was the whole thing. And of course, they felt safe, right? It was fine, but it's like, but I'm not from here.
Exactly.
And it was safe. It was a good space, like where I was. But that situation just really showed me how deep the putting away of the fear issue
Mhm.
around safety
Yeah.
and was, and it just like reared its ugly head right in front of me. And I was like, I spoke to a counselor, friend who was a counselor on the phone. And I'm like, I need you to talk me through this. Like, I can't, I can't steer myself out of a paper bag right now, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So sometimes we need, this is where community comes in. This is where practitioners come in,
Yep.
because even though I do this for a living, I help clients move through stuff. I do this for a living. In that moment, the issue was so big and no coping mechanism and nothing that I used before was going to work.
Mhm.
Right. It really became very clear. I'm like, oh, okay, we got an issue here.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, ooh, this is deep. Like, this is really, really deep.
Mhm.
And so they helped me move through that. And I was able to come into a calm space and that kind of thing. And then, and then since that time, then after that, it wasn't too long afterwards. Like, I still had things that were like mirroring back to me. This is what happens in life.
Yeah.
Life mirrors back to us what we're doing well and what is asking to be healed. So
Mhm.
if we're not happy about something or a relationship, there's something in us oftentimes as well that is asking for attention. So this is a lot of like what I teach my clients and people, even if they come for a reading and the guides go, give them this tool, that's what I do.
Yeah.
So that's why I bring all the modalities, because I've worked a lot with people with trauma, but I've also been working on my own trauma,
Yeah.
right? So I can't take a person where is somewhere if I have like if I've never been there, I can't take a person there. I don't have the authority to do that.
Yeah.
So the big thing right now for me is really, this thing where people sometimes, though, they overuse practitioners, they overuse readings, they think that what they need is outside of them. I
Mhm.
can tell you it's not. That is a complete farcity.
Mhm.
And for me, coming even just up from a Christian background, even though I know that God is in my heart, for whatever reason, God is still out there. I need somebody to save me. I need, I'm a terrible person, and it's not actually true, right? And I was extremely sincere in my faith, and I'm grateful for all of that. But I will say that when I also expanded beyond that, I experienced a level of relief that I have never experienced before.
Yeah.
And so if that is serving a person and it is helping them to cultivate their relationship with source and heal themselves, all the power to you. Like, I'm not, in judgment of that. I just came to a point where I found I couldn't expand, I couldn't grow. And I had this deep desire to move beyond that, but it was scary because I was going to disappoint all of these people. So that whole thing around needing approval
Yeah.
was so strong and so ingrained within me,
Mhm.
learning to be within the lines, authority and submission,
Yeah.
and at the same time, I would have spirit of source saying, you don't need anybody's permission to leave, even though that is what was normally asked of in this particular, church that I was with.
Mhm.
And I love those people dearly, but I had to leave. I had to expand. And I also went through a time of extreme anxiety through
Yeah.
that process. While I was going through it, just leading up to, and the longer I put it off, the worse it
The
got.
least it
So it
gets.
finally
Yeah.
came to the point where, where I was able to sort of, begin that process. And then when I did, of course, it was, this isn't God, all of these things, right? And so that's what I was told, right? I'm out of line. This isn't of God. And I can understand and I can appreciate the thinking behind that.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I knew for me that this was the right move for me. And then I experienced extreme anxiety afterwards that actually put me into a bit of a freeze mode. It was like I couldn't do anything. I as much as I wanted to harmonize and fix everything, I couldn't.
Yeah.
And I needed to not do that because that was part of what I was called to not do. But at the same time, I just was so frozen with fear. So it took me quite a while. Like, lots of people would just be like, it's no big deal. Like, just ignore the text, ignore this or whatever. And for me, it was like the end
Yeah.
of the world, you guys. Like, we're talking like 34 years, and
Mm.
people that I absolutely love, still love to this day. But I left that community to grow and to expand. And I experienced such relief, but the process of that as well. So it's been about 2.5 years now since I like officially kind of left.
Yeah.
And it's been a process of shifting through like healing guilt, the level
Mhm.
of guilt. Oh my heavens.
Yeah.
The guilt and like I felt like I was the bad dog. You're a bad dog.
And
That's how
you feel alone, right? Type thing. Like it's
totally.
you've been
Yeah.
in a community and all of a sudden
Yeah.
it's
And I
just
did have support, but there's a piece, right, that still feels
well, yeah,
alone as
exactly.
we're going through that process. So it's been a process of like coming out of that and then coming through aspects of fear and safety and security. And you really can't be who you are until until we start beginning to peel those layers back,
Yeah.
because there's so much conditioning, right? From the moment we're born, we learn how to play the game of life. We learn
Mhm.
what the rules are. And that is, our ego is mostly made up of other people's rules. It's not even our own, you know?
Yeah.
So
It's always kind of living in that box, right? That everybody expects you to be in. And you grow up, you have your family, you have kids, you have this, and it's not like that for everybody type thing. And it's just trying to get that yourself out of that mindset. It takes a lot. And like you said, it's really uncomfortable. Everybody thinks that, transitioning and elevating your frequencies and stuff like that is an easy transition. And man, it's not.
no, and there's a
Really not.
farcity. There's a farcity here when it comes to raising our vibration and people staying positive. That's BS, if I could
Yes.
say that.
Hmm.
Because you'd asked about my own routine and how I take people through things. And this is the very thing. It's like, I'm used to as well, like putting on a happy face and going and like dealing with all that obligation and all that inner stuff that's going on that it's messy. We're messy
Yeah.
inside.
Hmm.
And and there's so much more going on. And even within the spiritual community, I have found kind of some similarities even with the religious community, but it's just around other beliefs like
Yeah.
karma. And,
Mhm.
people are worried that if they don't deal with whatever they have to deal with in this life, they're coming back as a punishment to deal with that. Right. And it's like, do you understand what you're saying? Like I've said that because I didn't know any better. I just took what somebody else was saying. And then now I'm like, I don't believe that. That's BS completely, because your soul is going to make the decision. Your higher self, even right now, you guys, is running the show.
Mhm.
And so for me, part of this process, like, so I take people through the empowerment, working through trauma, everything from trauma to like learning how to like develop your spiritual gifts, channeling, all of those kinds of things. I do Akashic records as well to help address, past life stuff, light language activation. So I take people through a process of how to activate. And I've just added actually another piece to that. I know we're jumping all over, but I'll
Oh,
circle back.
okay.
But but in the next several workshops that I'm doing, the in-person ones that are coming up here in October and November, I'm extending it to written light language, as well as like with the hand movements as well, with the speaking, and then also receiving light language healing codes to be able to actually help you heal your body and even other people as well. So learning how to actually drop that into the body and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So people will be able to actually experience and feel what that feels like, right? Which is amazing. And so all of these things I use in my daily life as well, like as these are tools that I use. Sometimes, the human part of us kicks in and goes, I don't feel like anything today, right? We have those moments. No, but nobody's got all their poop in a group,
Mhm.
but my own process, like in terms of my own process, um, through doing some training, some stuff from my guides, and then also some help with a very spiritual counselor. They helped me to really learn how to go inward. And this is what I learn how to, I teach people how to do. And I do this on a daily basis. I check in with my inner child. I check in with the part of me that feels tired or the part of my body that's in pain. And I connect with my emotions, right? So this is what I was talking about in the spiritual community. Even sometimes it's like, you got to stay positive. You know, if you don't stay positive, you're not going to manifest what you want, right?
Yeah.
It's the same fear control BS that is not helpful,
Mm-hmm.
because we're here having a human experience. And so we're going to experience our humanness
Mm-hmm.
while also learning to ascend and transcend and transmute those emotions. But we've got to go into the feeling of whatever is going on at the moment so that we can come into alignment. And that alignment will help us then begin to go, okay, I'm going to align with this trajectory, right? So then we manifest things that are really congruent and really aligned for us, not just like, oh, I want a Lamborghini, you know, and you might manifest a Lamborghini, but you may find you're actually not as happy with it as you thought you might be.
Yeah.
Right. So it often will come from the ego. But if you're manifesting or seeking to manifest something from that is truly from heart-centered living, and this is a lot of what I'm teaching people how to do right now, is how do you connect with your intuition and your higher self? How do you live a heart-centered life?
Mm-hmm.
And then not only that, it's the healing. So healing our life, the growth part so that we can expand and maintain. We have to create a container, right?
Yeah.
It's building a foundation. So
Mm.
some people who have, for example, a lot of money issues and they've been in debt for years and this kind of thing, and you think, oh, I'm just going to do this little manifestation thing and poof, you know, everything's going to be sorted out. That also is BS. Why? Because we've built a level of momentum, right? So this is the same for not just money, but for relationships, for anything, even a pattern of going to a specific type of emotion or a way of thought. It takes time because that becomes a big ship,
Mm-hmm.
right? The ship takes a little longer to turn around. So for some people who are just thinking, well, I'm going to do a few affirmations and all my money issues are going to be resolved, you will be disappointed. And I'm sure many people are disappointed. I know I've been. I'm like, okay, well, this isn't working. So now what, right? So part of what I'm doing also is I run an 8-week series 2 or 3 times a year called Heal, Grow, and Manifest. And the whole thing is to take people through every week, the same process initially to address and heal whatever's going on internally, and then begin to reclaim their energy so that they begin to shift the ship, right? It's shifting the trajectory, and so that they can actually attract and magnetize to them. So we teach people, how do you be in flow instead of forcing things to happen, right? So this is a big part of like what has been my learning process. And so what I do is what I do, like what I do to help others is what I know has worked for me. And I've seen it work for many, many people now. Like I've seen people who have had like all kinds of trauma and everything and start doing the healing. And you're talking about healing happening really fast,
Yeah.
really fast. It's happening quickly. If we'll just sit and do the work. And like you said, sometimes it's 5 or 10 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So sometimes we need a person to hold space for us so that we can learn how to gain the momentum. It's the consistency of practice, the same with manifestation and money and our self-talk and affirmations. To
Mm-hmm.
turn the ship around, we need to build momentum, which means consistency. And for some people, like the money issue, that could take 2 or 3 years. I don't care what anybody's showing you online. Like, you know, lots of people don't share really what's going on. I can tell you from myself, years and years of the same patterns, debt, money issues, never having enough, on and on and on. And it's taken me this long in the last year or so to begin to learn what that process is. But the process is, you got to do the healing. You've got to deal with the patterns. You got to deal with the things that are self-sabotaging, and it's the subconscious mind usually running the show. So we got to heal aspects so we get the subconscious mind on board so that we can turn the ship around.
It's a level of commitment, right? It's a day-to-day.
Yes,
I mean, if you were committed to have the mindset of poverty
right?
for amount of years,
Exactly.
you gotta switch it around in order to go the other way type thing. So I totally get what you mean. Yeah. And it can be kind of deceiving because you got so many people saying, just think positively and just work, I don't know. I think most what I see online nowadays is like 29 or 27 days and everything's gonna shift. And I'm like, it's kind of how can you really say that? Because everybody works on such a different level, right?
Yeah.
And it depends how deep you are into it and stuff like that too. So, and again, the amount of commitment that you want to put into it also at the same time. So yeah, it can be very disappointing for certain people.
Yeah. Well, and it's like building muscle.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you build your muscles and become a bodybuilder in a week?
Yeah,
Hell no,
yeah, I know
right?
exactly.
It's like, right? So if
Very
we're
good.
building muscle to contain something or to have that level of strength, how long does it take to do that? Now, of course, from a consciousness perspective, there's no time and space, but we're living within the construct of time,
Yeah.
right? And
Hmm.
it's so that we can learn, we can feel the emotions and move through things. We can feel the joy. We can feel, otherwise everything would just be like, okay, we're done, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is
Yeah,
about, having an experience, and and this is why we do need support. And can it happen in 27 days? Absolutely, it can
yeah,
happen.
for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the
Well,
likelihood of that happening without somebody doing the deeper work that builds the container, you
yeah.
might be able to manifest that. Sometimes people can go, okay, I've just manifested $10,000, but they can only do it once. Why? Because they don't have the foundation or the container to
Yeah.
maintain it. So this is a big part of like what I'm doing is teaching people if that consistency and going inward and doing the healing work so that we can plant the garden. It's like you got to clear the garden of
Hmm.
all the wildlings. I don't call them weeds, I call them wildlings because it's just energy that's sitting there that we don't want. So
Yeah.
we got to clear that energy out so that we can put energy in or transmute that energy into something that is useful as we move forward. And then we're going to get the crop that we are looking for,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
That is a process.
Mm.
And it's different for everybody. For some, it's going to be a few days, and for some, it's going to be a couple of years. And the money thing is really interesting because money is so tied to our survival, which is why we have such a big focus on it.
Yeah.
But that focus keeps us in that lack mentality. I don't have, I need money, I need. The more you think you need, you will be shown you need. That's exactly what will appear. So
Mm.
we've got to shift out of the I need. And one of the things I was just sharing last night on my live was you can simply just say while you're in this process of working through stuff, it's not about just being positive all the time
No.
because you bypass the emotional stuff, which actually could create more mental and emotional health issues, actually, because you'll be disappointed because you're not getting what you actually want, right?
Yeah.
It causes other issues.
Yeah.
That's why you need the combination of all three of these things. But what happens then is people can say, just as an example, okay, so I say I need $2,000. I need $2,000 to pay the rent for the end of this month. And instead of saying I need it,
Mhm.
say, excuse me, say I don't need it, but I would like it.
Yeah.
I want it. So you're actually even just very gently beginning to shift the frequency of how you're saying it. It softens it. I need, I want, I would like. I
Yeah.
don't need it. I want it. What if
Hmm.
you go, I don't want it. I already have it. And then sit with the feeling that I know this is a very common thing that people do, but imagine like, who are you and what are you doing? Rent is already paid. What are you doing? Right? Like really going into that sensory experience and feeling the joy of like, it's already done, right? What happens then is the universe responds in kind and goes, oh, okay. Oh, we're already done with this. Oh, they've shifted out of here, right? And we
Yeah.
may experience some more tests. So sometimes things, even though things are shifting for people, and even in manifestation or seeing, this different kinds of abundance coming through, if you're saying, this is where I want to go, you also will be provided the challenges that you need to step into that. So if you, right? So it's like,
Okay, yeah.
so it's not just that, like, you're not just experiencing challenges that are not useful. You experience the challenge that actually helps you to become the person who actually can sit in that kind of a container or sit in that space, that frequency,
Mm.
right? So you're
I never
going
even
to,
thought of that. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm. You're
So the
right.
universe goes, oh, okay, so we're doing this. So even if you've decided that, right? The universe goes, okay, all right, yeah. So we'll provide the opportunities, challenges, and the exciting things. All of this will be provided so that you really can embody it.
Yeah.
This is why
Okay.
we don't manifest or maintain our manifestation, because we don't embody it. It doesn't really, we don't become it completely.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Fully.
this is it. It's about becoming, right? It's really about becoming who we truly are, which is
Yeah.
not even connected to this material world, but we're in it to learn and to evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh my gosh, we can talk so much about this. I
Mhm.
just realized the time too.
Yeah,
You're gonna have to come back for another episode for sure.
I would love to. It'd be my
That would
pleasure.
be really awesome.
Part one,
Yeah.
part two.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, absolutely. Well, maybe even more than just, two parts. We'll do a couple of them. That'd be really cool. You got so much to say and um but I do want you to mention how, people can reach you and stuff like that. I know that you had mentioned you have your YouTube. I will be posting everything at the end, obviously, so that everybody can see it. But I would love it if you can let them know. I don't know, is there other areas other than YouTube, or do you have an Instagram and all that too? Or
I do. I'm most active right now on YouTube,
yeah.
because that's a place where I like to do training and teaching, giving people tips. I do interviews, as well with people, and they share tips and things like that to help others.
Mhm.
And then I also do mini readings and energy healing on there as well, once or twice a month. So those are usually Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
And I really love that. It's so much fun, to be able to offer, these beautiful times and empowering and just connecting with people. And yeah, so my YouTube handle is Crystal Sayers. So if you look up my name, Crystal Sayers, Sayers,
Yeah.
that's my YouTube handle. So you'll find me there. And then I also have a website. It's New Beginnings Health and Wellness .ca, sorry, newbeginningshw.ca. My business is called New Beginnings Health and Wellness. And yeah, so people can find me on my website as well.
Okay.
And I am on Facebook as well under Crystal Sayers. And there's also New Beginnings Health and Wellness there too. So
Nice.
Instagram as well, Crystal Sayers and New Beginnings HW. So
Okay, cool. Well, I
lots of
will be
places to
posting
find
all
me.
of that. Yeah, no, no, it's good. It's good.
Yeah,
It's awesome that you do the little mini readings too and all that type of stuff too. So it's
yeah,
cool.
they're fun.
Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Thank you
much
so
for
much.
being here.
Thank
Yeah.
you for having me. I feel very honored, and
Um,
just I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing with this, and I think it's a great way to be able to share with others, to inspire and empower others as well. So keep up the great work.
you too. It's really awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.
All
Thanks.
right. I'll see you
All right.
soon. Take care,
Yes.
Chris.
Take care.
Okay.
Okay, bye for now.
Bye.